Welcome to the Brent Gove podcast with co-host Eric Lofholm. We are building 1 million agents in 100 countries in 10 years. Now, here's your host, Brent Gove.
Hi, this is Eric Lofholm. I want to welcome you to another great edition of the Brent Gove podcast. And we have back a guest that we had on previously, and I loved interviewing him. He has tremendous knowledge about solar and utilities. I've seen him speak before. I'm so impressed with his expertise. And solar and utilities is something important for us in the real estate industry. Today, I'm joined by Shawn Davis. Shawn is with SolarWise. He's also with the SolarWise radio show that's on 8 stations. Previously, 22 years as a financial services expert with a fiduciary in financial services. Shawn, I want to welcome you back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Eric. Happy to be on the Brent Gove podcast. Super excited to join you and talk a little bit about what's going on here in California, energy prices, solar, wherever the conversation takes us. I'm ready.
Sounds great. So why don't you share with us, our audience is real estate agents. And they're all over the country, but we have a big group here in California because that's where Brent's main office is located. And so share with us, what do our agents need to know about what's happening with solar these days?
Oh man, it's been an ever-changing, ever-evolving industry. I'll say we call it in the industry, we call it the solar coaster. Because it's a lot like riding a roller coaster. It's up, down, all around. Sometimes it makes you nauseated. It just is what it is. But this year in 2024, man, it's just been absolutely crazy with the utility markets. I will share this. If you've got any clients, anybody listening that have clients in the PG&E territory, Eric, listen, PG&E this year alone has raised rates 4 times this year alone. Right. So no cap on how many times that they can raise rates, no cap on the amount of those rate increases. So for some context, since the last time we spoke, January 1st of this year, they raised rates 13%. Not 60 days later, on March 1st of the year, they raised them another 8%. So it's already at 21% in PG&E territory. And then since then, 2 more rate increases for combined about 32% so far this year. And I would love to share with you that that's the end of the madness, but we've become aware that there's another increase that's planned that could hit at the end of this year, worst case, maybe January 1st of 2025, just so they don't have the reputation of raising rates over 50% in 1 year. But we're hearing another 19% coming January 1st of next year. So in PG&E territory, we're literally talking about over a 40% rise in cost for electricity. And my fear is this is just the beginning of more to come. But this is the worst example in the last few years we've seen of pricing increases. So, and then what happens in PG&E territory, Eric, I'm on 8 different stations throughout California. What happens in PG&E territory will soon happen in Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric territory. So for those that have the unfortunate experience of dealing with publicly, profitable utility companies such as PG&E, Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, my fear is this is only the beginning of worse to come, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so what does that mean for real estate agents? How should they utilize that information? How can they benefit from knowing that? What should they do?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For real estate agents specifically, I think there's two things to kind of keep in mind. Number one, solar had a massive change last year in the amount of crediting that you get for the excess energy that a solar system produces on any bright, sunshiny day. So let me explain a little further for the benefit of your audience. When solar is on a roof and sun hits the panels, those panels are going to make energy. They're going to make electricity, and they don't ask who's home or how many people are home when they start to make electricity. I don't have an ability to change that. We don't have a turbo button that allows us to have solar make more or make less than it would normally make. It just makes power. And so on any bright, sunshiny day, if a system's cranking out a whole bunch of energy and that energy isn't being used inside the home, that energy used to be exported to the utility company, and whoever the homeowner is would get a benefit of having that utility company kind of look and act like a battery for them. The utility, let's take PG&E, for example, that excess energy would go to PG&E. PG&E would store it for the homeowner and then allow that homeowner to pull that energy back later that afternoon or evening or later in the week or even later in the month or year. So the utilities acted like batteries for those older systems. Now, the point of clarification here is this is April of last year, April of 2023. So if somebody's representing a seller that has an older solar system, that seller is likely part of the NEM2 or Net Energy Metering 2.0 compensation, which means they get that one-to-one benefit where the utility acts like a battery for them. So those systems are more valuable than the current equivalent, which is the NEM3 or Net Energy Metering 3.0 system, because for new solar folks, if their system creates that same excess or surplus of energy, instead of the utility giving them a one-to-one credit, they get a 75% reduced compensation. So I like to say, instead of the utility acting like a battery for them, they act like a thief instead, stealing 75% of that surplus energy. So the point being is that it's really important with realtors to understand, especially at this time of year, given that we're now a year and a half into this big change, to understand whether they're selling a house that has a NEM2 system, which is that full value credit, $1 for $1, 1 watt for 1 watt benefit that you get. And those homeowners that have that type of a system are grandfathered into that compensation for 20 years past when that solar system initially went live. So if you've got a realtor working with you right now that's got a house that's got solar on it and they installed that system in 2020, that home and that one-to-one credit will be grandfathered for 20 years past that point, so through 2030 or 2040. So that would be a really important thing to kind of acknowledge or make note of on the listing, is the fact that it is a NEM2 system, full value credit, grandfathered in, because we in the solar business can't get those systems anymore. We can't get that credit anymore. Conversely, if it's a NEM3 system, so our solar system is installed after April of last year, it would be critically important to understand how big is that system, how much bill mitigation is that system going to provide, and does that particular system have batteries? Batteries are now more important than ever for storing that surplus energy. Because what you don't want to do is have that energy go to PG&E where they keep 75% of it. If you store it in your own battery at the house, at the property level, you put 10 watts into the battery, you can pull 10 watts out. There is no loss. There's no degradation. So point number one is that I think that existing realtors that are representing buyers and sellers, if that house has a solar system, it would be very important to know, is it NEM2? Is it NEM3? How long has it been in force if it's a NEM2 system, and then have an appropriate write-up in the listing to make sure that people acknowledge that, it's a more valuable type of solar system. The other point that I was going to make for your existing realtor clients is this. I think it's becoming more and more apparent to me that in PG&E territory, houses with solar, I think, are going to be more desired, or that solar option is going to be something that people want to talk about, because in this high interest rate environment, post-inflationary environment that we're in, people are feeling unsettled. They don't have the income. They don't have the ability to spend and or save like they used to, because everything is so much more expensive. And so when you think about home ownership, you can't do anything about the mortgage, especially if you've got an older mortgage with a really low rate. You're not going to refinance that. You're not going to save any money in this environment. Can't do anything about the property taxes. Can't do anything about hazard insurance right now. But of the major expenses that homeowners or home ownership brings, the one place where we can make a big dent in those costs is right now with solar. Solar, we can help somebody save a massive amount of money on utility costs, because right now, utility focus, the cost of the electricity is becoming more and more, I think, a top of mind concern for folks that are shopping in PG&E territory, Edison territory, San Diego Gas and Electric territory. Less so, for example, in Roseville, in our local Northern California area. They've got some of the cheapest energy out there. So I don't think solar is as a hot topic for those buyers as it would be for homes in PG&E territory. But I do think we're starting to approach a period of time where houses without solar, especially in PG&E territory, are going to have a challenge marketing themselves or becoming as attractive as houses that might have some sort of bill mitigation or some ability to, reduce that cost of monthly electricity via solar systems than houses that don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like from a scripting standpoint, it's important to know the difference between, did you say it was NEM 2 and NEM 3?
Yeah, so NEM stands for Net Energy Metering 2.0, the second iteration of it versus the third iteration. And all NEM is an actual contract with the homeowner and the utility for the amount of compensation that they'll get for the excess energy. So they call it a Net Energy Metering Agreement or NEM contract. The version 2 was the one-to-one credit version. You can't get that anymore. That ended in April of last year. But older homes that had solar prior to April of last year are all grandfathered into that form of structure. And it would be very important for your buyer's agents and listing agents to understand that if they're negotiating on a house that has an M2 system, or if they're listing a house that has an M2 or an M3 system.
Yeah. So whether you're helping someone on the buy side or the sell side, being able to articulate that, if you're helping a buyer, when you're talking to the seller's agent, what type of, is this NEM 2? Is it NEM 3? And understanding the value of that, being able to communicate the value. If you're a listing agent and you have a NEM 2 property, and being able to communicate that to the buyer's agent. Now let's go out of California. Is there an M2 and NEM 3 in Arizona or Texas or Florida, or no?
Yeah, every state that you go to is going to be different. So, for example, Nevada was the first to implement net energy metering in Nevada. They took a deep dive, almost killed solar. They had to retract it, brought it back again. So, in other jurisdictions throughout the country, it would be important to understand that every state is going to be different in how they treat solar. Some are more liberal than others. Obviously, California leads the nation in solar adoption. The next most solar adopted state is Florida. Then you start to get into some of the southern states, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, et cetera. But mostly, those states do have their own versions of the type of compensation that you would see. But the reason I'm bringing it so much here in California is PG&E now has the reputation of being the most expensive utility in the nation. So as a contrast, right now in California, in PG&E territory, Tier 1 rates are 43 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's any energy you use before 3 p.m. in the afternoon. From 3 p.m. until 9 p.m., you're at 62 cents a kilowatt hour. So Eric, think about it this way, 43 to 62, depending on the time of day. For contrast, my son just moved to Texas. He's with the city of Austin. He's got utilities there. He was just quoted his Tier 1, 4 cents a kilowatt hour. His Tier 2, 7 cents a kilowatt hour in Texas. So, that's not real. It's not creating the urgency that solar does or the rates do here in California. But I also had another idea I wanted to share with you, because right now affordability is really kind of critical, right? So let's say somebody's got a buyer that wants to buy a house and they're at the upper end of their qualification. That homeowner is going to have to do some analysis. They're going to have to factor in, insurance costs, mortgage rates, maybe the ability to refinance it at a later juncture. But if that house doesn't have a solar system and they're trying to do their budgeting and they're forecasting $400, $500, $600 a month in electricity cost, I just want to share with you right now, we've got some great programs. I've got a program right now, zero out-of-pocket cost for the homeowner to have a system installed, cuts their rates down to maybe 23, 24, 25 cents a kilowatt hour from that 43 to 62. And this is for a system that they don't have to get a loan for, not going to show up on the credit balance. It's not a lease. It's a power purchase program. But effectively, another company will install a solar system at that property, saving that homeowner about half the cost versus PG&E, Edison, or San Diego Gas and Electric. And that could be the difference between affording a house that somebody fell in love with and maybe not affording a house. And I love the fact that it's not a loan and it's not a traditional lease. It is a power purchase program. So you're only buying the power from a solar system that you didn't have to install versus you getting a loan or paying cash for a solar to try to save your money that way.
So just for all of you real estate agents listening, I'm gonna feedback what you just said so they can get connected to what you're saying, and then also have you fact check me and make sure I've said it right. So,
all right. Here's your test. Let's go.
So if I have maybe a previous client I helped buy a house, and they don't have solar.
Okay.
So I could contact them and say, hey, I'm reaching out. I want to let you know that there's a solar program out there where it's not, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to lease it. A company will come in at no cost to you as the homeowner, and they will install the solar, and then it'll decrease your monthly energy cost. Is that correct?
100%, man. I should hire you to do my next marketing ad.
Okay. Now, tell me how it works, because let's talk about I think there's 3 different ways somebody can get solar. One is this program you just mentioned. The other is a buy or a lease. Talk about that. And then if there's any referral program, because I think it's a good idea for agents to refer, they're not going to probably be selling solar themselves. So do you have a referral program? And if so, just walk us through that.
Yeah, so there's 3 traditional ways that you can benefit from solar or go solar. Number one, you can own a system. So that would be either writing a check for it or getting a loan to finance the cost of the solar system. Right now, I will say, just like mortgage lending, financing and solar is not awesome. We don't have incredible rates. It is more expensive at this time of year and in these years than it has been previously. So financing has not been as attractive. So either owning, paying cash, or financing. Second option is you can lease a system. And everybody understands, especially realtors understand, leasing can be very problematic to transfer to a new buyer. It's restrictive. You usually have to have a higher credit profile to lease stuff. And then some people have a negative connotation regarding leasing in general, and that's sometimes hard to overcome. So the last option has gotten a little bit more attention, I would say, in the last couple of years, ever since rates have risen. But that's a power purchase program, and you nailed it. It's basically the concept where a third-party company, for example, we've got a company in Florida, Next Era Energy, the 3rd largest utility in the nation. They're trying to come into California from Florida to compete with homeowners business with PG&E, and they're trying to steal business away from PG&E on the back of solar. And the value proposition is they'll install a system, meeting the needs of that particular family, because solar is not a one-size-fits-all asset. Every house, every homeowner, every family, every energy profile is different, but they'll install a system to meet the needs of that family, that house, give 2 to 6 batteries with that system. It's a soft credit inquiry. There's no loan balance. There's no debt that shows up on anybody's credit report. And essentially all you're doing is agreeing to purchase the energy that a solar system that you didn't have to pay for and didn't have to get installed yourself is installed at your property, roof mount or ground mount, and then you just buy the energy from that system. And we're seeing people save about half the cost versus PG&E. And to answer your original question, we absolutely have a referral program. Anybody listening right now that either themselves wants to move forward or has a client that potentially wants to explore this, we'll pay them $1,000 if they refer us a client that ends up moving forward. We kick in $250 of our referral fee or our broker fee. And then the installer, whoever the installation company is, we deal with 11 different installers throughout all of California. Whichever installation company that is kicks in the balance, but that's $1,000 to anybody that refers to us. And if you're interested in exploring solar, if you're hearing this now, if you got a client or anybody in your family or friend network or whatever, all you got to do is simply text one word, call, CALL, text call to the following 5-digit number, 84503. If you text call, that word, to 84503, my team will be in touch. We'll help you explore it, answer any questions you might have about an existing system or any new potential systems, but we're happy to help anybody that's part of your listening audience, Eric.
Now, on that program where they're not buying it, they're not leasing it, they come in and they install the solar system at no cost to the homeowner to lower the cost of their utility expense. Does that also qualify for $1,000 referral?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I want all of you to really hear what I'm going to share with you right now, is that it makes a lot of sense to have a relationship with a solar professional that you can refer to. And ideally they have a referral program where you can be compensated, because I'm here in California. I know when I got my home, my real estate agent didn't mention anything about solar, and I ended up getting solar. And so the real estate agent had the relationship with me before I was ready to get the solar. So if they had just simply asked the question, hey, Eric, this is what the costs are here. You're in PG&E territory and you might want to take a look at solar. I have somebody that I can recommend. That could have been an additional income stream for my agent, but not just with me. I mean, he could do, many, many more solar deals. And so get a relationship with somebody that can help you with solar. One thing about Shawn, I've gotten to know him a little bit here, and the few times I've interviewed him before, we've sat down and had coffee, and I saw him speak before. He's the most knowledgeable person that I've found on solar, and that's why I asked him to come back on the podcast, because he's such a wealth of knowledge. So let's talk about anything else, Shawn, that real estate agents should be thinking about or learning about with solar. Anything else that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I think that it's important to understand. I want to give you a little bit of statistics here, and this would apply to basically most of California. I can't speak to other states that might be represented by your audience, but I was just reviewing something. It's the Public Advocate's Office as part of the CPUC. Okay, so the California Public Utilities Commission. So first thing I wanted to share is right now there are no less than, and this is in PG&E territory. And again, PG&E is the big workhorse, and Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric followed them. But PG&E has no less than 12 future rate increases already tendered to the CPUC for plans that they have moving forward for what they want to accomplish. So 12 additional rate increases. Now, having said that, PG&E in the last 10 years has risen 125%. That's 12.5% a year. For context, Edison in Southern California has risen about 8.5%, and San Diego Gas and Electric has risen about 9.5%. So 12.5% for PG&E and roughly 8.5 to 9.5 for the others. At that pace and that scale, most people are seeing their utility cost, their energy cost for electricity, having doubled in the last 6, 7, 8 years. And so my concern is I think that this is only the beginning of more to come. And here's the most challenging or disconcerting thing. Right now, fully in California, this is directly from the Public Advocate's Office of the CPUC, 1/5 of all of our California neighbors are currently behind on their energy costs. The average expense, $780 that they owe the utility. So 20% of our neighbors are already falling behind on energy expenses. And they call it energy poverty, but it's the idea that you can't use the amount of electricity that you ideally want to use to keep yourself comfortable in your own home because you don't want to afford or can't afford a $500, $600, $700, $800 utility bill. And so my concern is that we're starting to see a trend where people are falling behind. And I think with realtors being on the front lines of having these conversations with homeowners, either with houses that already have solar or with homeowners that are looking or falling in love with a house that doesn't, I think you would be doing your audience and your homeowners a disservice to not have these types of discussions, because this is challenging. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, because in California, they want to be carbon neutral by 2040. Newsom signed the executive order a couple of years ago, getting rid of internal combustion engine cars for sale by 2035. The California Air Resources Board already in law is getting rid of natural gas hot water heaters and furnaces by 2030. So what I see is California is going to force more energy usage on us all, and then the utilities are going to charge us twice as much for it. So it's almost a double whammy. Consumption is going to go up, and then the expense of that energy is going to go up. And Eric, the only thing, and California has an energy monopoly. If you buy a house in PG&E territory, you're stuck with PG&E. You buy a house in, Edison or San Diego Gas and Electric territory, you're stuck with that utility. The only way you have a choice, the only way you have an opportunity, the only way to save any money, to not get skewered by the utilities, is if you explore solar. And so I would just argue that, speaking with a broker, somebody like myself, I've gone through 30 different companies trying to find 11 good ones. Solar does not have a great reputation. Solar and solar companies have gone under. We've had more companies in the last year go under than in any other period of time that we've seen in solar because of that big change that happened last year. And thankfully, out of our network of 11 different installers, I haven't lost a solar installer on our side. But the big guys out there, the biggest companies, SunPower was just the most recent one to go under. Infinity Energy, Triton, these were multi-state companies, gone, no longer exist. So the big guys have some of the greatest jeopardy of failure. The small guys have some of the biggest jeopardy of failure because they don't have the bandwidth or the money to be able to outlast whatever their challenges are. So what we focused on in our broker model is the mid-level installers, guys that do at least 250, maybe up to 400 installs of solar a month. Those guys have enough purchasing power to get better pricing on panels and inverters and batteries and such, but they're not so big that they've got 3, 4, 5,000 employees and 50 warehouses in California. And they're not so small that, the slightest little speed bump, causes that particular company to go under. So I think we're in a good spot relative to the network of installers that we have. And I would just encourage your real estate audience to reach out. Once again, text, call, CALL to 84503 if you'd like to engage or connect with us, and we'd be happy to help you with any questions either you or your clients have if you're listening.
Fantastic. Well, Shawn, amazing content, as I knew you would deliver, because you live this every day.
I live, breathe, eat, and talk it. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm the same in my area of expertise, and I love, when I saw you speak, I instantly wanted you on the show, and I wanted to have you come back again to give us the update. And so thank you for that great information. Why don't you just one more time let people know how to reach out to you if they'd like to get connected to you?
Yeah, the easiest, simplest way for you to get connected with us is if you text us. So we have a short text code that you can use. If you text call CALL to 84503, there's about 4 people in my audience that will see that. You can also go to our website. Our website is solarwiseco.com. That's solarwiseco.com. Or you can check us out, in our station list is on our website, by the way, but we're on 8 stations throughout California. I host a weekend show, a 1-hour show on solar every weekend on 8 different stations, both in Southern California and Northern California, where people can tune in. And I have that station list on our website. But one last time, if you'd like to engage, if you have a referral, if you'd like to earn $1,000, if you're interested in exploring solar yourself, all you got to do is text CALL to 84503.
Fantastic, Shawn. Thank you for the great info. That is going to wrap up another great edition of the Brent Gove podcast. As I always say, listen to this podcast multiple times to put the best ideas that Shawn shared today into your subconscious. And also, I encourage you to share this podcast with your team and with your organization so they can benefit from the great ideas that Shawn shared today. That's going to wrap up our podcast. We'll talk to you on the next show. Bye for now.
Okay, so here's the deal. We have incredible information, video content on my YouTube channel. Go over there and make sure you subscribe. And it's vital that you ring the bell. If you ring that bell every time I put out new content, it's actually going to notify you, and you can get the latest and greatest of what's happening at EXP. Now, don't forget to like me on Facebook so you can also get that content, and then follow me on Instagram. We're hitting everybody high, low, and in between. We're trying to get the information out there so you can build big businesses, revenue share organizations. So go to YouTube right now. Please subscribe and ring that bell. Like me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram. We'll see you out there.